Today our topic is water balance, and I think also some electrolyte balance along with this. So we just came out of a unit on kidneys, and we said that kidneys are adjusting our body fluids. They're adjusting the composition of our blood. They're also adjusting overall the entire water and fluid balance of our bodies. So we start off talking about water on this day, and then we move to electrolytes. This picture is showing, like if we look at all the fluid in your body, we can put it into these things called compartments. And the compartments, the two big compartments are, is the water outside of cells, or is the water inside of cells? That's the first big division. Is it extracellular or is it intracellular? You're about 2/3 intracellular fluid. So when you read that thing about the human body is blah, blah, blah percent water, and it's like this high number, most of that water is inside cells in the cytoplasm. And we call that intracellular fluid. The rest of the fluid that's not in cells, it's outside, and we say that it's extracellular. It's about 1/3. This part itself falls into different categories as well. So if it's inside a cell, it's in the cytoplasm, it's just intracellular. If it's outside the cell, it's extracellular, and extracellular itself has other subdivisions. So here's that same concept. The big rectangle is all your body fluids. 63% is intracellular. The rest is extracellular. And this is showing you, okay, the extracellular overall, where is it found? All of these are extracellular fluids. So you have interstitial, and I'm going to write over here because the camera is showing this part. So pretend I'm writing this with interstitial. Interstitial is what I have been calling tissue fluid. That's interstitial, that's tissue fluid. That's what lymphatic vessels are draining. So that's kind of like the fluid that leaks out of capillaries and it goes and surrounds the cells, tissue fluid or interstitial fluid. Then we have plasma. That one you know what it is, the liquid part of the blood. Lymph. Interstitial fluid, once it gets in a lymphatic vessel, then it's lymph. So it's just where are we finding it at the moment. And then transcellular. Transcellular includes a lot of other important but minor in volume body fluids. And I think I have a separate. Oh, look. I haven't reviewed slides today because I got flustered this morning. So transcellular fluid consists, let's write where those are. You need to write examples of that. So transcellular fluid, I'm going to write it up here, but it goes with transcellular fluid. So you write under here, I'm writing here. That's things like synovial fluid in your joints. That's transcellular. The fluids in your eye, like inside your eye, the humors, they're called humors. The fluids in your eye. Cerebrospinal. And then the fourth one that we're going to write down is serous fluid. Like the fluid that comes out of the outer lining of your lungs to lubricate, that would be considered transcellular. So other body fluids that are outside cells and they're not these, all of those are transcellular. And there's more too, but those are the major ones we'll list down. Got those? Those are transcellular. So between those are the fluids and where they're found and how they're categorized. Almost every place in the body, water will move between those fluids by osmosis. Like we learned that water follows salt, or water follows solute. And these arrows show that, oh well, water can move from interstitial fluid back into the bloodstream. Water can move from there into lymph. Water can cross plasma membranes. Water can go like through a whole entire cell, back and forth through here. Water will do osmosis between all compartments almost all of the time. So there's not many places in your body where you're like keeping water on one side or the other. Only in the kidneys does that sometimes happen. And the other new term related to that is this term osmolality. Osmolality. Osmolality has to do with the solute concentration. So if we have, say that we have a container of Gatorade and we have a container of Kool-Aid and we have a container of water, just plain water. Kool-Aid has the highest osmolality because it's the most concentrated. So you can think of high osmolality as like the most concentrated. This would be medium. Water is, there's not much dissolved in it. It would have low osmolality. So water will move from, in these situations, water will move from where the solute concentration is low to high. Water will move to balance things out. That's what osmolality is referring to. So, when water moves, it can have two reasons for moving. And these are our same friendly or hateful arrows that move in and out of capillary beds. Water can move by hydrostatic pressure. Water can move by osmotic pressure. And remember, water moves toward, water will move toward areas of higher osmolality, or toward more concentrated solutions. And when it's moving for that reason, that's osmotic pressure. Same two arrows, you add them up, that tells you which way is water going to move at a certain spot. So you can think of almost all the water in our body is interconnected with between the compartments because water can move between the compartments. So we get water by ingesting fluids generally, or IV is a way to get water. And we mainly lose water by altering how much urine we're putting out per day. We balance our body fluids by these two main methods. So we ingest fluid and we alter urine output, and those are the two big movers of body fluids. Or sorry, those are the two big things that change your body hydration in general. So for your average person that is just living an average life, this is where they get water from. Beverages, 60%. Moist foods, 30%. Yeah, this is average for your average person. And we make, like, the chemistry of our body actually produces some water. And that's a pretty high percent. Like 10% of all the water that we get is coming out of chemistry reactions that our body is doing. So that's our average water intake. Oh, that's all there. Okay. That's pretty simple. Okay, water output, this is also simple to understand, but just remind yourself, how do people lose water? They lose water through sweating. And this is, a person that's not running around or doing athletics. A person like me. 6% through sweat. 6% through feces, if you don't have diarrhea. If you have diarrhea, it's going to be more. Skin and lungs, so evaporating out of your skin, there's more actually that you breathe out. And when tomorrow morning it's going to be really cold, and I know that you won't go out early if you don't have to, but if you do dragon breath, like my kids are still, you can see how much water you breathe out on a day like that.
I saw it this morning.
Yeah.
I would have seen it this morning, except I was late and flustered.
It was like 38.
My brake light is on. I have a lot of minor anxiety today. Yeah, it was cold this morning. Just thinking about my brake light, not the... Anyway. And then, this is the big obvious one. We lose the most water through urination, usually. Usually, if we're having a regular, normal day. That's how we balance water output. We don't, like when our bodies are trying to conserve water, this is what we change. We don't really have sweating shutdown mechanisms so much. We don't try to reclaim water from feces really to help ourselves. This cannot really adjust on the fly. It's our kidneys that help us retain water. Yeah.
Do you know why then, like, before the onset of like heat stroke or like dehydration, people stop sweating? I don't know, it's just
that's
like
an
people
extreme
talk about
and late event.
it. Okay.
Like people do stop sweating. People do stop sweating when they've got severe heat stroke and dehydration. It's just because they literally do not have the water left to put there. So their kidneys would have tried to do adjustments first. That does happen. Like you do stop sweating when things really get bad, but that's not a way that our body uses minute to balance water. Good question. People can stop sweating, but they will have, their kidneys have tried a lot for them before they get to that point. Good question. Okay, so we hope most of the time that our body fluids stay in normal balance. And I think before I talk about this, I need to put another fact up here, which relates to why do we need water? We need water. Why do we need water? What goes wrong when we don't have enough water?
You die.
You die. At the end. Before that, what goes wrong if we don't have enough water?
Start shutting down.
Your body just
It's dehydration. You start shutting down. What did you
your
say?
body just doesn't work.
Your body doesn't work. Yeah, so that you know. What I want to talk about is like, why does that happen? So, the physiological reason that we need water is twofold. It's needed to complete chemical reactions. And that's kind of the long-term reason. So what this says is to complete chemical reactions. We need it for that. But in the short term, the things that are going to go wrong if we don't have enough water is to dilute electrolytes to the correct concentration. And then there's a third reason, which is again not the immediate thing, but we need to maintain blood volume. Dehydration is when you don't have enough water. The immediate problem with dehydration is that your electrolyte levels get too high. So, like imagine, nasty, this is your blood, and you've got water leaving. You've got water leaving. Everything else gets more concentrated. So the more water leaves, the solutes get more concentrated, and your electrolytes have to be at certain levels for your brain and muscles to function well. That's why we need water minute to minute, to maintain those levels low enough so that we're not too concentrated with sodium, we're not too concentrated with calcium. Yes, we also have to have blood volume. We also need water to digest food and do other important functions, but that's why you don't function, you get dehydrated, you eventually die. It's really this. It's really this. Okay, so dehydration. We know dehydration is when you don't have enough water, but the real problem is all of your extracellular fluids are too concentrated. Too much water is leaving. The solute left behind is too concentrated now. Let me draw another picture here, or go back to a certain picture. This one. Okay, if we don't have enough water in extracellular fluid, which is all of this, if these are starting to get dehydrated, well, water will leave the cytoplasm and come out here to balance. And then the cytoplasm itself is not operational if it gets too concentrated. It's kind of like the same thing. Like you too concentrated here because water is leaving to go balance this, because you're losing too much water from those four ways overall. That's what the actual physiological problem is. Oops. Okay, so when you are dehydrated, your kidneys will start helping you by reducing urine output, or let's write right here, concentrate urine. Your kidneys will concentrate your urine and keep more water in the bloodstream and less in the tubules. They will do that to help you if you're starting to get dehydrated. But when they do that, when they do that long enough, if you're not urinating enough to get wastes out, your blood wastes will start to rise if you're extremely dehydrated. Then that adds to the problem of we've got too much solute in the blood generally. So if that continues and you don't get fluids, then your electrolytes, your ions or your electrolytes will become too concentrated. And then you have brain and muscle problems. That's what cramps are, you know? Do you know that? When you have cramps, it's a muscle thing. People say, oh, you need to hydrate so you won't get... Yes. Yes, so that your electrolytes don't get too concentrated and then mess up your muscle function, which is cramps. That's how that works. So why no water during practice? I don't know. Can lead to cramps. Okay. Okay, so we usually worry about dehydration. Like that's the dangerous part of water balance in the body. There is also a phenomenon called hypotonic hydration. Hypotonic hydration. The hypotonic part is referring to low solute. That's what hypotonic means. Low solute. The hydration means you've got a lot of water. This is also called water intoxication. Sounds weird. Hypotonic hydration or water intoxication. This is the opposite of dehydration. So you've got so much water that your electrolytes are not concentrated enough. So this goes with this. Your electrolytes are too dilute or they're not concentrated enough. And again, that means your ions are imbalanced. And again, this could cause your muscles and your nervous system to stop working. If you've heard that you can drink so much water that you die, or too much water too fast, that's true. It can lead to hypotonic hydration. I had a student once, and they swore to me they knew someone this happened to. It's Tristan of church. Not him, but his friend, he said. Have you heard of this?
Yes.
When does this happen? When would this happen?
Would be drowning. Like if you were.
Drowning. That's not what the problem really is with drowning. Like if a person, like drowning is water, too much water in the lungs. But that's a good guess. When else would this happen?
When you keep drinking water?
And not going to the bathroom.
Drinking too much water and not going to the bathroom. Like when would people do that?
But for the competition that we won.
A stupid competition. A stupid competition. Like, so you can drink the most water and the most speed. That's dangerous, actually. That's dangerous. The other time it happens is if people are doing a competition, and they're just so thirsty. Like I've read about it with cyclists, or it could be distance runners too. You've gone so long without drinking, and your brain is telling you, I need to drink and drink and drink. And your brain doesn't catch up with your hydration, then it can be dangerous. Then it can be dangerous. And I feel like the really old school coaching stuff, like don't drink water during practice, is a misunderstanding of, yeah, this could happen, but you have to really overdo it. So maybe don't drink a gallon of water during practice, but drinking water during practice is good to avoid hypotonic hydration. So what's happening is your brain is telling you, or you're deciding to drink water so fast, and your kidneys are supposed to help you keep water in balance, but they're not. Like you're going too fast with the ingestion and they can't keep up. So water's coming in faster than your kidneys can process it. And then your electrolytes get out of whack, and the person would pass out first. So don't don't do it. Don't do it. I've tended in the past like scared students too much about this. It's not a very common thing, but it can happen. Hypotonic hydration. This picture is, I think, not from your book, but it's related to if you drink sports drinks, and they say that they are isotonic, or things like Gatorade, Powerade. What do you drink now? Those are like old now.
Still.
Is it still those? Okay. In Asia, they market drinks like that. They put on the label isotonic because they know what it means. It's like one of my favorite drinks in Malaysia is it's like a Gatorade thing, but it's a little bit carbonated, and it's called 100 Plus. And it says on the label, isotonic drink. It's like if you put that in the United States, nobody knows what isotonic is. But now you do. So if something is isotonic, so what that really means in regard to sports drink is the electrolyte levels in the drink, match, generally, they pretty much match. That's what that thing means, kinda. They kinda match levels in healthy extracellular fluid. Healthy extracellular fluid. They might be a little bit above because they're supposed to be replacing, but that's what isotonic is. Yeah.
I've heard when like you're sick, it's good to like drink
Mm-hmm.
drinks like that.
Pedialyte, which is nasty.
What?
You like Pedialyte?
Pedialyte is
Good.
gross.
It's good.
It's delicious.
If you're hydrated, it doesn't taste as good because you can taste all the salt. But like if you're dehydrated, that
It's
tastes
the
like
best.
candy.
I bought like a case of it when one of my kids was sick and little, and they wouldn't drink it, and they were stuck with it, and I tried it. It's like, maybe I'll just drink this up. Oh, it was gross. What were you going to say?
When I first got to America, because I couldn't deal with the humidity, the shredded red we drink on the bar every year is the worst thing in the world.
What?
I prefer Gatorade.
Yeah.
I much prefer
I think
Gatorade.
it's like a mental thing, like it reminds me of when I was sick. Like 7-Up.
Oh, you
too,
have
I
like the
hate
mental
7-Up.
association, yeah. I think Pedialyte, so Gatorade and Powerade are assuming that you're losing, that you're sweating out a lot of salt, and they're a little bit more salty than Pedialyte, but I thought Pedialyte was gross. It was also generic Pedialyte, so maybe your parents bought
No, like
the name brand of Pedialyte, and maybe it's better.
the only time I drink Pedialyte is after I weigh in, so it's like anything I eat after I weigh in tastes so much better than normal, I guess.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you have, like, if you think it tastes bad because you associate it with sickness, that's a limbic system brain sense memory.
That's why I was like 7-Up.
It doesn't really taste bad, but your brain, when you have the taste, it remembers being sick.
I always like the grape flavored. That's always the best one for me.
There's a clear one that doesn't have a flavor.
Yeah, it's weird.
Salt flavor.
Lake water.
Yeah, like
Lake water.
You're supposed to mix it. You're supposed to mix it with drinks if you don't like
Oh,
it.
yeah. But related to this, if you drink plain water, like if you drink plain water, that's usually fine. But it's not containing electrolytes. So for hypotonic hydration, you're drinking a lot of fluid and no electrolytes with it. That's the danger. What could you drink that's hypertonic? It's got some up there.
Soda down there?
Soda's hypertonic, Kool-Aid, ocean water, really. You heard like sad stories about people that are drifting in the ocean and they can't stand it anymore and they drink ocean water. They're getting extra electrolytes and adding to their problem of too concentrated electrolytes. So it's not like it's the salt in it that adds to your own salt. That's what causes the problem with that. That's why you can't drink ocean water, like from an ocean. Sonic ocean water is also hypertonic, but not to a dangerous level. Okay. A more minor type of water imbalance is edema. So this is probably the fourth time in this class I've talked about some kind of edema. This is general body edema with pictures. So this is the same, this is a woman probably. Right and left hand, she's having edema in this arm and not this one. It could be because she's got lymphedema from breast cancer that we talked about, like up in blockage up here. That might not be the reason, but it shows you, like, this is the same person and this is the level edema could get to. This one, if you go into nursing or maybe physical therapy, the way that you test people for edema in the legs is you push your fingers into their leg, and if it stays dented, that's a dangerous level of edema. And when I first started teaching classes like this, I taught at community college, and I had students go into nursing, and they were still around. And one of them saw me when I was pregnant, and she said, "Dr. Ong, can I check you for edema?" And like she did, and I said, "Yeah, you can." She said, "I think you look like you have edema." And she did, and it didn't stay. I said, "I just have cankles." And I always look like that. So, I mean, it depends on the person. But this is the way that you check for edema in the legs. You push down. If it stays dented, that's a dangerous level. And in pregnancy, it means that they probably have high blood pressure and they might have preeclampsia, but some people also just have cankles as well. Edema is you've got extra fluid in the tissue fluid. Or sorry, extra liquid, extra water in the tissue fluid, more than you should for some reason. There are a lot of reasons that you could have this. I'm going to pull the screen up on this and write some extra to relate this back to things that we already talked about. And we've talked about all of these kinds of edema during the class, but I want you to remember how they literally happen. So if you're having liver failure, let's not put no, let's put too few plasma proteins, because your liver makes those. to pull fluid back into capillaries. So you're not maintaining osmotic pressure of your blood because you're not making the proteins that stay in there and help pull water back in. So liver failure can result in edema. Kidney failure, because you can't eliminate water. You can't eliminate enough water. Enough water. Because urination is your main big mechanism to get rid of water. If your kidneys aren't working, you'll get edema. If you don't have enough protein, to build plasma proteins, it doesn't matter if your liver is healthy, if you're really protein deficient, like the little child in the nutrition section, and I guess he had rice or something to eat, but not protein, and he was all swollen. That's that situation. So liver's okay, but you don't have anything to build plasma proteins out of. Inflammation. Any place where you have inflammation locally, you'll have swelling. Keep pointing my arm because I've got like a thing going on here, but any place in your body locally where you've got inflammation, you'll have swelling. If you have body-wide inflammation, you'll have body-wide swelling as well. And then if you have lymphatic obstruction, if you have lymphatic drainage obstruction in a certain area, you will have edema. If any of you have massage therapy training, and then you learn that helps circulation and lymphatic drainage, that's true. And like what you're trying to do is you're trying to, I guess you do it this way. I don't have training in this, but like you're trying to push the fluid with your hands to relieve lymphatic obstruction. I'm doing lymphatic instruction. I'm trying to talk about lymphatic obstruction. Okay. All right, so it's super important to maintain your body fluids. It's super important to keep your electrolytes at certain levels. Your kidneys do most of that work. Your kidneys use hormones to do that work. This is the hard part of today's lecture, and it's right at the end, unfortunately. Unfortunately, right at the end. The last 15 minutes. So we're going to learn, I'm getting hot thinking about it. We're going to learn these 3 hormones. They all start with A. It's also annoying. It starts with A. They all affect water balance and blood pressure by doing different things with sodium and water in the kidneys. And this is going to be one of your bigger exam questions on the next exam, to answer questions about these individual hormones and what they're doing in the kidneys. So for these 3 hormones, what do they do to blood pressure? Like, is it going up or is it going down? You got a 50-50 shot, and that's the good news. Like, if you guess these, everything is an up or down movement. So, not too bad. What is their effect on urine output? Is it up or is it down? And this one, when it says effect on kidney function, what do these hormones cause kidneys to do? So what I'm writing is, what do they cause kidneys to do besides making more urine or less urine? What are they really doing in the kidneys for these 3 hormones? Blood pressure, urine output, what do they do in the kidneys?
What's the arrow stand for?
Up or down? Like on a test, when I'm making the key for this, like the answer, like I draw an up arrow. So you could write it raises it, you can draw up arrow, it increases blood pressure will get higher, those all mean the same thing. I think in terms of up-down arrows. I like arrows, can you tell? I like vectors in physics. Arrows make sense to me. Okay, first one. Antidiuretic hormone. I think we mentioned this briefly before. It's also called vasopressin. It's also called ADH. So for me on my exam, you can write ADH. The vasopressin, you need to know this if you work with older doctors. They're going to call it vasopressin. That's the old name. The spelled out name helps you know what it does. Like just the name. Is it going to increase or decrease urine output? Decrease. Because it's anti-diuretic. So it's going to decrease urine output, which means you keep more water, which means it raises your blood pressure. That kind of makes sense with the name. What it does is the new part. And we already talked about what it does, actually. Your tubules reabsorb, or your tubules retain more water. Right out here, you reabsorb more water into the bloodstream. So your tubular reabsorption of water increases, you keep more water in the bloodstream. So less water goes into urine. The how is you get those aquaporin water channels into your distal convoluted tubules and your collecting ducts. This is so important, I don't want to hear them. Next thing, so yeah, you're keeping more water in the blood, which means you've got more blood volume, which means that you've got more blood to push on your blood vessel walls, which means you've got more blood pressure. Those things make sense together. We're keeping more water in the blood, which means we have more blood. We have more blood available to push on blood vessels and to raise blood pressure. Antidiuretic hormone. And if we're keeping more water in the blood, we're making less urine. So our urination would decrease when this is active. Here's when you make antidiuretic hormone. If you unconsciously detect rising electrolyte concentrations, that thing means concentration. This is not even a brain function. This is out further in your body. You have detectors for electrolyte concentration.
This is why you make ADH?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have to think about it. Your body does it for you automatically. What's ADH do to blood pressure? It raises it. You have a lot of ways to raise blood pressure because low blood pressure can kill you quickly. High blood pressure kills you slowly. Remember when we talked about that? Like, 2 of these hormones raise blood pressure. 1 of them lowers it. It wasn't even found until like 10 years ago or something like that. Because for your body, low blood pressure is an immediate problem. So this is just a reminder that antidiuretic hormone, you make those aquaporins, which lets water come out of the filtrate, come back to the blood, and you concentrate urine. It's to help you not die from low blood pressure. You make ADH to keep your blood pressure at a living level. Okay, second one, aldosterone. This one you also heard of way back in the hormone section as part of RAAS, I think you talked about it in lab, renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. Aldosterone kind of happens toward the end, and it acts in the kidneys. It's working on sodium. So aldosterone actually affects sodium. So this is what it actually does in the kidneys. It causes your kidneys to keep more sodium. Oh, I don't have to rewrite it. You're keeping more sodium in your bloodstream. If you keep more sodium in your bloodstream and water follows salt, you're also keeping more water in the bloodstream. So aldosterone has the same effect as ADH. Like, did I talk about trying to get my son to go to wildlife? Like,
Yeah.
I can get him to go to wildlife, or I can get Micah to go to wildlife, and then Noah will go to wildlife. And the effect is the same in the end, but aldosterone is actually making sodium be retained, and then water is retained. Everything else except this fact is the same between aldosterone and the antidiuretic hormone. So yeah, we reabsorb more water, we increase blood volume, we increase blood pressure. All of that's the same, but aldosterone makes that happen by helping us reabsorb more sodium. And then the water follows the sodium by osmosis. And also the same, we make less urine because we're reabsorbing more water. The urine that we do make is going to be more concentrated. It's aldosterone. And the way I remember this is that antidiuretic hormone, diuretics are like involved with water. Aldosterone is the sodium one. Sodium. That's how I remember it. Okay, the third, this is the one that's more newly discovered. And it has the opposite effect of these other two. So it's atrial, like atria of your heart, atrial natriuretic peptide. So this is a little short, like mini protein almost. It's called ANP. You can write ANP, but the name of this actually helps you know what it does. So I want to put, what does the name mean really? Natria, that's sodium. Cap on, circle this. See how that's sodium? Those are both coming from the old Latin word for salt. So natria, it's got sodium listed there, Na, sodium. Uretic. Oh, that tells you what it does. It makes you urinate more sodium. It gets sodium out of your body. ANP. Whoops. You make ANP if your blood pressure is really high. So if your blood pressure is dangerously high, you will make ANP to try to help things. And that tells you also, well, this is probably going to lower blood pressure. This is going to lower blood pressure. And it causes you to reabsorb less sodium. So what that means is you've got more sodium in the filtrate, which will eventually be urine. You're keeping more sodium in the filtrate, and water follows it. This would be like, if I don't want Noah to go to wildlife, I can convince Micah not to go. This is going to happen tonight. Actually, we're having like a cookout at our house. And Noah and Micah will both be there, and they won't be at wildlife. We keep more sodium in the urine. That brings more water to the urine as well. We pee out more urine. We have less less water in the blood, more water in the urine. And if we have less water in the blood, we decrease blood volume and we decrease blood pressure. ANP, atrial natriuretic peptide. 3 A's, 3 hormones, 2 raise blood pressure, 1 lowers it. And the other key part to remember is aldosterone is a sodium actor. Antidiuretic hormone is a water actor. So don't wait until the night before the exam to like memorize this stuff. Like you can make up little quizzes and like just pick a random one. What's it do to urine? Quiz your friends. What's it do to blood pressure? How does it do that? This will start on Monday. Go ahead and read what's assigned for Monday. We have a catch-up review day on Wednesday, and we'll probably have to do some catching up to fit all this in, but that's why that day is there.
Test on Friday.
Test on Friday.
Never ending. Every day.
Well, December is